Welcome to our episode of our podcast, Don't Chew With Your Mouth Open, where we'll discuss business, economics, finance, investments, and wealth creation for the global south. Welcome back to Don't Chew With Your Mouth Open. Thank you for your viewership and watching our previous episodes. Today we're going to speak about changing your allegiance, the emotional cost of moving between social classes. We once were at a dinner, and while we were at that dinner, we noticed that one of our friends wasn't present. Upon investigating it a lot further, we realized that that friend didn't feel comfortable coming to that dinner because, one, of its cost, and two, he felt that he was not in the same class as us. That was a great spark to a conversation, that what happens when you begin to move from one social circle or one social strata to another. How do you transition with the relationships you've had since you've grown up and what you went through to escaping poverty, to arriving in a place where people start seeing you differently or you start seeing yourself differently? That the things you can afford now were pretty much very difficult things to have before. And there's a whole community of people that you cannot relate with because your life is in a separate strata. Today we want to speak about that, how to go about feeling yourself through that, dealing with the emotions of it, and hopefully putting yourself in a position to be able to continue a trajectory to financial wealth. We hope you enjoy the episode. When you're the first in your family or one of the few to first go to university, to first get a corporate job, to start a business, to move to a new neighborhood or the suburbs, you begin to distance yourself from the community you grew up with, from the people you were working with, the people you went to school with. And when you enter into this new strata, it becomes difficult sometimes to engage with people who may have left you behind because they have gone to a further strata than you, or whom you have left behind. That emotional burden often causes us to make poor financial decisions. We sometimes deem this black tax. So what genuinely needs to happen is you need to change your allegiance. You need to start focusing primarily on what's important. Which family members and friends are important to you? Why are they important to you? How does your culture speak to where you are economically today? What is the key for you supporting who you support? And how then do you live your life? How do you live your life when you now can afford to fly to places, and when you can afford a house, when you can afford a new car? How do you conduct your spending? How do you manage your discipline? Who are you loyal to? Over time, we carry some of these burdens. There are many people who we know who've spent a lot of money trying to support family members or people in their sphere who don't really care about them. I recently had a conversation with a colleague of mine who often says he feels a lot of pain because his family members only call him when they need money. And this is again the story we need to tell. We need to be honest about where we are. We need to be honest about who we are. Because if we don't, we will have a poor allegiance. If we have poor allegiances, we make poor financial decisions. And so you have to switch allegiances. You have to put yourself in a position where you question the decisions around how you conduct yourself. If you are an individual who feels that there's an obligation towards your family because they are the ones who sent you to university or built you up, go ahead and support them. However, understand you have limits and you cannot continuously be the only person who's supporting. If you are the person who's completely turned your back away from where you grew up, I think take a look back. Understand that there's someone else who may not have your opportunity set and may need some help. However, the point is you've got to switch allegiances. You've got to put yourself in a different box because you are now a different human being. You have different access, you have different knowledge, you have different income. And the poverty that we are all trying to leave, and some of us have escaped from, is difficult. And we are all striving to help those who are in need. However, we have limited resources. We also must live our lives. We have responsibilities in terms of our immediate families and the broader family group amongst us. So the message is you've got to watch how you go about spending your money, because you may have a poor allegiance. That allegiance may cause you to make bad decisions, and those bad decisions could have a negative impact on your income and your financial stability going forward. So let's talk about the silent grief you face when you have to let go of your old life. There's a difficulty around that. that you no longer can easily plug in back into your society. If you're in the township, you arrive with your car, your children go to certain schools that your brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, children don't go to. It's a difficulty, and we often don't discuss that. There's a silent grief there. And in that grief, we again make poor decisions. And those decisions can completely hurt our financial trajectory. So we need to address that grief. You are now a different person in a different environment. How are you going about treating yourself differently? You've got to switch your allegiance. Secondly, success can, in this scenario, be lonely. So you find that your family genuinely becomes your friends who are in the same economic strata as you. Hopefully, a lot of your friends have gone through that process and are already in the same scenario as you. But more often than not, that's not the case. So you've got to look for new meaningful connections that understand where you are. Does that mean abandoning your old connections? No, the two are not mutually exclusive. The point that we're trying to drive is that your allegiance must be to your new self and how you make financial decisions with your new self. They must be clear, they must be understood, and they must be able to support where you are presently. There will continue to be a tension between who you are and who you were. And therefore, you need to embrace your new identity. Be clear about your values, what's important to you, what matters. And once you're clear about that, you can support that with your financial decisions. If that clarity doesn't exist, you're vulnerable to making terrible decisions. Not simply just by the black tax, but you may spend your money in pleasure-seeking activities to satisfy a need that you may have had at a younger stage in your life. So we need to manage that. We need to understand what it takes. I have a friend who, when he got successful or he escaped poverty, he bought himself a BMW, red BMW. After driving it for 2 weeks, he took it back and downgraded. And when we had the conversation, he was open about it, that he had always wanted to drive a red BMW. However, he realized that that decision was not financially prudent. Again, he switched his allegiance. He focused on what was important and financial security. And we hope that you will be able to do the same. Let's talk about survivor guilt and imposter syndrome. When you arrive into this new class, you may feel like you don't belong there. You may feel a sense of guilt that you are one of the few who's escaped your poverty, your township, your rural area. And we have to look at that and say there is a power in realignment. There's a power in you aligning yourself to your new values, to your new circumstance, and choosing an allegiance that's healthy. Is it easy? No. However, is it necessary? It is. Because as long as you don't understand who you are and carry the burdens of your previous state, you will not be able to fully embrace your future state. So we are not saying abandon your family, abandon your loved ones. No. We're saying seek a new identity. Restructure yourself. Put yourself in the position where you have found a new allegiance. And that allegiance will help you make sure you make sound financial decisions. You will seek sound counsel about how to spend your money, how to support your family members, how to build yourself, how to manage yourself in this new strata of life that you've found. Sometimes growth feels like a betrayal, but until you realize that it's for the good of your future self and those who see you and those who support you and those who you've supported, carving a new path is a great alternative. So, as we land this plane, take a moment to reflect. What are your values? What are the things that are important to you? How are you committing your finances to it? Why are they important to you? What are the things you think are valuable to you today and bring you a sense of satisfaction? And how are you aligning your financial life to this? How do you prevent yourself from making bad financial decisions because you've moved in economic strata? Or you've had friends who have gone further than you and you're trying to keep up with them making poor financial decisions. How do you manage yourself? Seek through and dig deep. Learn how to manage that. Work through those emotions because we spend typically how we feel, which is why systems matter. So we want to say to you, switch your allegiance, manage yourself, dig deep, figure out the things that are inside you that are important and the values you hold now that you're in a different part of life, and that you can then establish yourself towards financial security. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you for watching Don't Chew With Your Mouth Open. See you next time.